Today, I will take you through a step-by-step review of a product design portfolio. I will structure it as if I was doing it for one of my students who wants to prepare for the job search and optimize their website for hiring managers. I will point out the good aspects and what needs to be improved. Of course, as always, I will keep in mind that portfolio needs to be scannable, memorable, and concise. And I will pay attention to storytelling, ability to synthesize, and ability to provide just enough information so that people understand the case study, but they are not overwhelmed with it. You can learn from this video and implement those lessons in your own portfolio. Let's start. First, let's take a look at the homepage of the portfolio. So this is portfolio of Mira. He's a product designer, and he welcomes people with a big quote that says, "Talent flourishes when working with individuals who are self-aware, mindful of others, and sensitive to their surroundings." It's an interesting quote. There's also a small note below it that says, "If it resonates with you, we might be a match." So Mira, at the very beginning of his portfolio, talks about his values and potentially something that could be a guideline for a culture fit for his clients and potential employers. It is an interesting approach. I really like the fact that there is some kind of quote at the beginning of the website instead of just stating your name or having your picture. It's a different approach than what usually people take. At the same time, I think I would focus more on the value that Mira is providing for people regarding the design. So something connected to the impact that he can have on the product, or something more directly connected to the design craft, let's say. This quote is a little bit more connected to the leadership, culture building, maybe someone who is in HR, or maybe he's a leader of a design team, maybe something in this direction. But I would say for a designer, I would probably take a look and look for something a little bit more connected to the craft, connected to the value that you're providing. At the very top, we have navigation. We have the Let's Chat button, which is also a good CTA already at the very top. I will come back to the navigation items later on. We have some culture fit, and we have a link to the case studies there. So moving on the website, as we're scrolling down, I really like the slide animation of the two visual elements at the very top. It's not overwhelming. It's not as it is sometimes in some portfolios where we have a lot of animations and things just jumping around the screen. This one is really subtle, but there is this interactive element to it. Then we have a section where Mira says, "I'm a multidisciplinary product designer with 15 years of experience." And I really like that because it already establishes the respect and it shows that you have 15 years of experience. So we're kind of expecting a really high quality of work. And we also know that you are a multidisciplinary product designer. I think it might be also interesting here to add maybe industry that you have those 15 years of experience in, or what types of products that you are designing for. So for example, if you're a SaaS designer or you have experience in some kind of industries, it might be interesting to mention it here as well as a little bit more of an extended introduction. Then moving on, we see a social proof, which is also a really good thing to add to your website. We can see 4 reviews from scientists, head of product and service designer, and senior brand and product designer. So those are people who are credible, who are from the industry, and they know what they're talking about when they're reviewing the designer in general. What I would recommend here is also add the company that they work for or where they worked at the time when they gave you this review. It will be a little bit more convincing and also give them more credibility. And then we're moving forward to case studies. This is a really clean section, and in general, this portfolio is really clean, which I really like. And when it comes to the case studies, we have the subtitle that says selected examples of work. I think it's a little bit dry, not that encouraging. Maybe this could be something like my favorite examples of work or my best work, something connected to those are the things that I'm the most proud of, basically. So later on, we have 5 cards, each one for one project. But what I'm seeing already at the very beginning is that one of them at the very top is not available soon. And it says that case study available soon. I personally don't recommend to have coming soon projects in the portfolio. I think it's a bad practice regarding you're indicating that there is something there, but it's a little bit misleading. And also, it doesn't contribute any value to the reviewer. And I would rather, if you focus on the case studies that are actually there, especially at the top of your list, and advertise them heavily and advertise something that they can actually click on and review, so they are not disappointed and they're not looking for this first case study. Then we have 3 case studies that are available. And we have the Avocode project, which says that case study unavailable. And I think, again, this is a really bad practice because it's not even coming soon. It's just not available. So I'm not really sure if I can't see it because of some NDA that you've signed. Do I have to reach out to you? Is it something that you're not willing to show, but you want to show that you work with Avocode, which is quite a well-known company? In general, I would recommend to remove those case studies, and realistically, you have 3 case studies that are already there, and those 2 case studies, if you have them open and you have them open for review, it will give you the list of 5 case studies, which is like an optimal number for me. So I would definitely work on that. Then later on, we can see that there is information that there are more case studies on human-computer interaction available upon request, and we can get in touch. And there is this funny animation, which I really like, this personal touch here. Like in general, your character comes across in this portfolio, which is a really good thing. At the same time, we have it upon request, and when I click get in touch, we are on the contact page, which is in a very different aesthetic, which I probably would continue in the same like simple aesthetic that you had on the homepage here. There is LinkedIn, Calendly, and your email. And there is no easy way to request those case studies. So if you have a call to action that people can request more work, I would put the contact form directly on the page or in the pop-up that says, give me your email, I will get back to you within 24 hours to show you more case studies, or please jump on a call because I can't show you more case studies. I can't send you more case studies, but I can present them during the call because of the NDAs that I've signed. Something that's more clear regarding the next steps, because I can see that there is Calendly here, so probably you're going in this direction, but at the same time, it's a little confusing here. The next steps are a little bit confusing. But coming back to the homepage, the next section here is who are you? And you have sections for recruiter or hiring manager, fellow designer, or C-level executive. And I really like that because you can see here that you offer services and you can be helpful for many different people, and you can be a candidate in a recruitment process. You can help fellow designers when it comes to connecting. You're mentioning here also that you're looking for a mentor and you're open for mentoring. So that's a great source of information. And for C-level category, I would make it a little bit more concrete because you're saying here that you want to discuss something I can help with, or you're looking for a product person, let's get in touch. I think that it should be more value-driven. What kind of service you can offer to them? Are they looking to establish design strategy for the product or product strategy, or something a little bit more concrete? Because saying, if you want to discuss something I can help with, they are not clear what you can help with. And then you have the last part of your portfolio where it's like, my office is open for you, and you have some office hours that you can reserve the slot for. And basically it takes us to the same page as the previously we saw it, with the Calendly open for scheduling. So this is really good practice. It's really interesting in those regarding those office hours. I'm interested if people actually are scheduling that, and if you had some really interesting contacts from this practice. And at the very bottom of the page, we have a really minimalistic footer that repeats your name. You have LinkedIn link and some other links to social media. Now let's take a look at your first case study. It is a case study about a website for SaaS product that was launched in 5 days. It's a really interesting headline, and in general, I would like to explore more. It's also an unconventional choice for a product designer to put a website redesign at the top of the projects. And I understand that you took a UX-driven approach to this redesign, but it needs to be communicated a little bit better, so that people who come to your website to see product design portfolio projects, they still see this project as relevant and want to review it. Especially that you basically have 3 projects in your portfolio, and if you eliminated this one because it's a website, then they are left with only 2 projects. It may not be enough basically for them. So when it comes to this portfolio presentation, at the very top, you have your header and very interesting visuals in the background. They are encouraging to explore more. I really like that you have this preview of the website that gives a look and feel what you ended up with, and this encourages for exploring more. Also, layout is interesting because you have background, you have foreground, and also you have this overlapping section. So I really like it. Then we're moving forward to the problem, timeline, and process. So it looks like an intro section for me. In general, I would say that it needs to be a little more scannable, especially the process part where you have really long text, and it's really hard to scan the portfolio and just quickly take a look at what the project is about. In the problem section, I see that you've highlighted a part that says too vague and did not explain the benefits of the product clearly, which is a really good problem statement. And also you can continue with bolding out and highlighting keywords and key sentences like this throughout your case study so that it's more scannable and it's easier to explore for people. When it comes to the timeline, which is also a too long didn't read section, it's continuing the theme of day 0, day 1, day 2, etc. of this 5-day exploration, which is also quite interesting. And moving on to the solution and result. For solution section, I'm not sure if the title is really relevant here because it's from the bolded out sentence, we are starting to read that Hotjar recordings, testings with users, and Hotjar questionnaire have shown the main problems of the previous website. So it seems more like a problem section or some kind of research results section, at least from the bolded out sentence. So as I'm reviewing it, as I'm scanning through the portfolio, there's some misconception and some friction here. When it comes to the results, you're highlighting that the duration of an average user session has grown significantly. Then you say the amount of email subscribers gained per day has grown. I will also say that if you're talking about some increases in numbers, maybe it would be good to give some numbers actually. So by 20%, by 10%, or aligned with some goals for this project. And then you can see the results at the live website. I'm not sure if attaching the live website is a good idea long term, especially if you're not working on this project anymore. That might be a little bit misleading and the company might change the website and you have no influence over that. So this is something that you need to be careful about or at least monitor the changes on the website as you go. And then we have a section about sketches and results. When it comes to this section, it's really hard to understand anything here because images are blurry. Even like I can zoom in on them, but they're still very blurry. I'm not getting any value from it except for, okay, you made some designs happen. And this is really confusing and I would recommend doing it very differently, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And basically this is the whole case study. So definitely there is not enough content in the case study. You're just showing the introduction to the problem. It's like a summary, it's not a case study. And when it comes to the case studies, you need to show your step-by-step execution of the plan that you have. So you can follow this idea of showing day by day your work, but you need to show the evolution of your ideas, the problems that you were solving, and also how you went through all the phases of the design process. So you need to show the artifacts, for example, with annotations, with your ideas and how you went from one step to another. Also, what is missing here are goals for the project. So what were the goals for the project and what were the goals for the company, and align well with those. Ideally, when you're talking about the results, you will be also aligning those metrics and KPIs with the results, with the goals that you had at the beginning of the project. That will be an ideal situation. Also, I think you should talk about the users and people you were designing for. What is missing here as well is the answer for the question why it was important to solve this problem right now and why you decided to take this project on. It will be also really interesting, especially that a website is a really unconventional project for a product designer. By the way, if you want to continue learning and take your portfolio to the next level, I would like to invite you to my free portfolio masterclass. The link is in the description. Now let's come back to the review. Moving on to the second case study. So the second case study is about designing a booking platform for accommodating daily workers. And I think it's a really interesting project. It seems interesting from the very beginning of the page, and it also seems quite complex, so it's a good thing, especially for a product design portfolio. You're continuing with the same layout as in the previous case study, which is a really good thing for consistency, and it also worked really well, objectively. You're starting with a screenshot, and I already see that there is a lot of complexity in the product, which I'm really excited about. When it comes to the summary section, again, you have TLDR, problem, process, solution. I'm really missing the part about your users and your goals and the company goals. Those are the things that you should include, especially that you're a senior designer. So you should make a business case for a project and you should pay attention to users and the bigger picture of the company as well. So when it comes to the TLDR, it says that the outcomes of our research shifted the course of the company, as well as the perspective of founders, investors, and all employees of Acomango. in general, it's a really good thing to mention, and I think that you should use it a little bit more in your case study. So instead of only focusing on the outcomes and on your design process, you can also think about the methods that you were basically leading the design and establishing the design practice and establishing the research practice in the company. You can talk about how you were getting the buy-in from the stakeholders and what methods you used to establish the research practice. And you touch on it slightly in the problem, in the process, in the solution, but I think it should stand out more and it should show your capabilities as a leader here. So when it comes to the problem, you're giving a little too much background information in the problem section. So what I would prefer here is that if you could list the problems that you were solving and give background in a separate section so that it's easier to scan. Later on, we're moving to process and solution, and we're encountering the same issue that we had in the previous case study. So basically, you're not giving enough content for the reviewer to get to know your thinking process, to even get to know the scope of the project, to see any designs, any design process here. In general, there is not enough information in the case study, and I would recommend to add step-by-step information and your thinking, your behind the scenes, mockups with annotations, so everything that you do in general in the portfolio. Traditionally, I would also recommend to add it here because it seems like a very valuable project and I think you're not squeezing enough of it. So problem, process and solution is also a summary here. And I think that you could get more, especially that this is the only thing that we're getting about the first part of the case study. And then we're moving on to the second part of the case study, which is designing an operations platform for accommodating daily workers. And this is more of an admin side of the application, which I think is a really, again, valuable thing to show in your portfolio, that you're able to see the application from both sides, as a user and as an admin, and you have experience designing that. So I would definitely recommend adding more content to both parts of the case study, maybe even splitting them into case studies that they are connected to each other. But in general, I think that you're not using this project to its full potential. Again, we have the same banner here. So we're seeing some kind of screenshot with a calendar view and rooms, so I can more or less expect what to see later on. And we have information about the project in a written form. So it starts with a tale of 90s receptionist, which I think is a funny touch here, especially when I read this paragraph and I imagined this office that basically went back in time. And it's a really good illustration of the problem here. Then we have problem, process, and solution again. So I like that you're keeping the same structure. Again, I'm just missing the users and the company goals and the project goals. And I think here also talking about the users and really differentiating that would be a good idea because you have two completely different groups of users for this project in part 1 and part 2. So when it comes to the problems, again, it needs to be more scannable. It needs to be, some things need to be bolded out so that I can just take a look and know what the problems were. The same with process and solution. Again, process and solution are just a summary here, and I recommend adding more content to the website so that people know about the details, they know what exactly you've designed and what were the outcomes and the decisions. So in general, this is a recommendation for all the case studies that you have on the website to just put more content, more information, more detail, because you only have summary and some artifacts, which is not enough for the reviewers for the product design portfolio. And then we're moving forward to the sketches and result. Again, we're encountering the same problem. So I can't click on the image, so I can't zoom in. I can zoom in the browser, of course. Here we have a little higher quality, not for all of them. I can see here there's a screenshot from Figma, for example. But in general, they are not giving me much value and much explanation. I can see that you've designed a complex solution, which is based on the calendar and some lists. But in general, I would like to see more information about the process, about the steps that you took, why you designed it this way, and what were the low fidelity, high fidelity designs. Were there any pivot moments and anything that you learned from usability testing, for example, that changed the course? Did you test the designs? And how did you approach the usability testing? So those are the things that I think you should consider for all the case studies so that it gives a bigger picture of every project. I can show you an example from my portfolio when it comes to usability testing. So when it comes to usability testing, you don't have to go into too much detail. You can list, for example, what were your methodologies and what were the results very quickly, and then later on show how you iterated on the designs. So there is no need for extensive documents or making your portfolio unnecessarily long. It just needs to be information there about the usability testing and about, in general, all the steps that you took. One more thing that I think is missing from the case studies in your portfolio is the answer to the question why solving this problem was important at this particular time. In addition to answering this question, you can also think about the customer value. And how you can visualize that is by comparing importance of a user need and user satisfaction with the current solution on the diagram like this. And it already shows that you're strategically thinking about why you're taking on this project and what the impact could be. Now let's analyze your third case study. I already see from the very beginning that it's a case study about a mobile app and it's about private wealth management. And when it comes to the headline here and subheader, it states that you took this app from 0 to 1, which is really interesting, and you were part of this project for almost 3 years. So I'm expecting really extended case study, maybe even more than one case study about it, and with a lot of information. You also mentioned here that the application was ranked in the top 4 wealth management apps globally, which is a great result. Congratulations, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about the project. I've also noticed that you've changed the layout slightly, which I would recommend to keep it consistent between the case studies, especially this is your portfolio, and I think that going from one case study to another with changing layouts may be a little bit confusing and cause unnecessary friction here. We're looking to present the project, not necessarily present different layouts. And scrolling down to the next section, I can see here that you're following the same structure as in the previous case studies, which is problem, process, solution, and result. And in general, it's a summary of the whole project of 3 years, which I think that you could really squeeze more case studies out of this project and more details. The case study is not really showing the problems that you were solving, your thinking behind the problems and solutions, the issues you were solving, the methodology, the design process. So it's not showing those core things that we're looking for in the product design portfolio. It gives a summary of the project with a really great achievement that you had, but it doesn't give the details, and it leaves us a little bit like craving more information. Also, in this section, I will improve the scannability, and it's a general advice for all the projects by bolding out some keywords and highlighting information so that it's easier to just scan through and know what the project is about. Also, in the result here, you have an award-winning app with highly loyal users, and I think it's a good result, but also I would go more feature by feature, project by project, problem by problem, because the result is an app, and an app is not a result. App is a way of solving a problem. So I would definitely think about the results in more goal-oriented manner. And moving on here to the bottom part of the case study, you have sketches and results. And again, we're encountering the same problem of not enough content with not enough context. So I would recommend that you share the designs in a more systematic way where you're explaining one by one what were the features, what were the problems that you were solving. Also, with the 3-year project, I think it's not a lot that you are showing here. So you're showing some chat experience and what I assume is the main screen of the application. And it doesn't really show the full potential of the project, I think. So you're missing out on a lot of value here. And I think that the reviewers of the portfolio will appreciate if you show a little bit more and more engaging content. Now I would like to come back to what we saw at the very beginning of the review, so items that were in the navigation. I can see that you have 2 items, which are culture fit and case studies. Note about the hover states, they still need to be accessible, so they are too dark right now. I would recommend changing the hover state for maybe an underline or just a lighter or slightly darker color here, but this very dark color doesn't meet the accessibility standards. Another thing that we have here in the navigation is the toggle that activates this cat animation. I think it's a little excessive, and also it's a product design portfolio, and basically here you're covering the parts of the website and it's not really user-friendly. I understand it's a personal touch, but at the same time you can change it to something a little less intrusive and have the same effect, but also without the confusion and these negative things that can come out of it. Let's review the culture fit page. So here you're displaying your cultural preferences when it comes to the team that you would like to be working with and how you are as a person. It's a really nice personal touch here. We can get to know you better without even talking to you at the portfolio level, so that's great. In general, really interesting, dynamic way of presenting the information. The only thing that I would correct here are those hover states. So how to reward and how to motivate are displayed on hover. And I think that this really long information for the tooltip is not a good choice here when it comes to the UX of the website. Maybe some kind of expandable section or just displaying this information statically on the card would be a better choice. And when scrolling down, I can go to how does our playlist match. So you're showing here your music preferences. Again, nice personal touch. I would really be interested in that when reviewing the portfolio. The only thing here that is missing from the culture fit and also from the main portfolio page when it comes to like additional sections is your skills and your process. So I would recommend that you display your skills that you're good at. So UX design, product design, etc. Maybe some complementary skills as well. And also to show a little bit more information about your process. So what steps you take. It can be repeated from the case studies that you can potentially enhance. But in general, this kind of summary of your design process is something good to add, especially if you're looking for clients and companies that are not really that informed about the design process. So it can be information for them that, okay, you are a professional and this is the process that you're following. So I would recommend adding that, especially that you have information about the culture fit. So you already have more information in your portfolio, and skills and design process are like a basic information that you should add. Now let's summarize the review and point out what are the most important things that I would recommend correcting. So when it comes to the general impression about the portfolio, it's very clean, very easy to go through. I wouldn't change much when it comes to the layout and visuals. When it comes to the homepage, I would recommend adjusting the quote that you start with for something a little more value-oriented. I would also add more case studies to your portfolio and talk about your skills and process on the homepage directly. When it comes to the case studies, I would expand the content there, and I would really use the information that you have about the projects to show your skill set and show your process. I think you need to go step by step and show how you were developing the projects, what decisions you made, what kind of processes you were using, usability testing, add mockups and annotations. So in general, create a more intense and more detailed case study. I also recommend to pay more attention to the quality of the visual assets that you attach to the portfolio case studies. So some of them were blurry, some of them were not really meaningful, and I think this is the most value that people get from the case studies. So it's really worth paying attention to the quality and also annotating those assets. And the last thing I would recommend is adding more context to your case studies when it comes to the goals, the company goals, why it was important to solve the problem right now, and also users and personas that you were designing for. Let me know in the comments below what you learned from this review and if you will be making any changes to your portfolio based on the feedback I gave Mira. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.